The shots.
Behind the engine block. Behind the engine block. Behind the engine block.
All right, we're going to go back to Ferguson right now. We have reports of gunfire. Elliot, you're on the scene. What can you tell us?
Yes. Here's what has happened. There were crowds, basically. Okay, officer. Basically, the protesters were standing in front of the police officers. You may hear the gunfire now. Okay, will do, officer. Basically, we heard about half a dozen shots ring out that came from right. They came from right down the street. There were about 6 or so shots. The crowd then dispersed. The protesters have moved out. They are flat on the ground right now. Officers are also ducked down because of the gunfire. Officers came along and told us to get down. But
everybody good?
And officers are trying to see, has anybody been hit? Officers are trying to see, has anybody been hit right now? Hopefully, no one has. Officers are crouched down throughout the area. Protesters, they have crouched down. Basically, like I said, about a half dozen shots rang out. And
Elliot,
we are
exactly
still
where
hearing
are you? Where are you
sporadic
exactly?
gunfire. We're still hearing sporadic. Right now, I'm across from the Ferguson Market. I'm close to where the store was broken in, and right across from the Ferguson Market.
You said police were looking to see if anyone was hit or injured by those stray bullets. Do you know now any information about that?
I don't have any information about whether anyone was hit. We had heard, we do not know if a suspect is down, but we see some heavy police machinery moving down about a half block from where we are now. We saw people moving actually into a strip mall. They were running into that mall. We see a huge police presence moving in that area where the shots came from. It came, just about 3 blocks from where I am now. So we don't know of anyone who was hit right now. I can't tell from my vantage point, but there is a large police presence, as you can see, and that large presence is congregated about a block maybe from where I am now. We see police moving very quickly to that area. We do not know if they have apprehended a suspect. We do not know if anyone has been hit. Those are just questions we don't know right now, but clearly you can see police moving very quickly to the scene right now. That is where those shots were fired from. There were at least, it sounded like 7 or 8 shots were fired not far from where I'm standing right now.
And Elliot, as you speak of those shots, we have video right now. Let's listen to see what the scene was like.
Behind the engine block. Behind the engine block. Behind the engine block.
Get behind the vehicle entirely.
Father, come over here. Father, come here.
Come back to me. Come back to me. Come back to me.
You can hear those gunshots. We wanted to let you listen to that, but there was some profanity. We don't want to share that over air. So let's now go to Chris Hayes. He's on the scene right now, too. Chris, what can you tell us from where you are?
Major SWAT action right now. We're in front of the Ferguson Market, where we have a large police presence, and about 3 county SWAT vehicles just flooded the area. North of me right now, where we're told that there is some activity going on behind the Ponderosa, where there may have been a police-involved shooting. We were 2 blocks in that direction when we were surrounded by gunfire, at least 30 shots, and people were ducking into the streets, falling into the streets, not from being hit by gunfire, but trying to get out of the way or just to get down behind an engine block or something. And it was mayhem. People got in their cars. They were trying to drive off with people trying to hide behind the engine block of the vehicles. And that's when SWAT jumped in. And to the police officers' credit, that line of police officers, those officers remained standing even in that gunfire. And about 5 minutes ago, we saw those SWAT vehicles head towards that Ponderosa.
You're right there where the SWAT team is, where the heavy artillery is, or the heavy presence of police right now. Can you tell us if they've said anything, or do you know if anyone was hit by that gunfire?
We do not know if anybody was hit by the gunfire, but there were 2 swarms of activity in 2 different directions. One behind the Ferguson Market, where there were reports of a suspect involved in that shooting that was surrounding. It may have, the shooter may have run right by us, because at one point I heard shots to my right and then I heard shots to my left as I was behind the engine block of a car. And the next thing I knew, there were police in the back of the Ferguson market swarming the area. Then the next course of action, we had the tactical vehicles fly down West Florissant northbound toward that Ponderosa, where we heard about reports about officers possibly being surrounded. Now, what was frightening about this situation is we had the line of police officers at Ferguson Avenue in West Florissant, where there were a handful of protesters who were very angry and very loud, and that seemed to be taking up all the police officers' energy. We didn't see police officers in these other locations, and that's when those shots rang out. When we were close to this line, but in an area at that time where there were not a lot of police officers.
Chris, you said that the shots went right by you. How close do you think those shots got to you?
Well, it would be impossible for me to determine. I've not been in a situation like this or been in combat. I didn't hear them skipping off the pavement, but I mean, it was something that took my breath away. And my colleague also said, I counted in my head about 30 shots, and then my colleague Dave Sharp said, I think there were at least 30 shots. So it was very close, and people were screaming as if they had been shot while they were in the street, and then people were asking each other, have you been shot? Have you been shot? And there was a lot of confusion. Officers were even asking people lying in the street, had they been shot?
We've got audio from his camera when the shots fired. Let's take a listen to that right now.
Behind the engine block. Behind the engine block.
That was a volley.
Get down. Come here, get down.
A volley of shots you could hear. That was close to 30 shots.
Don't move.
And that's what Chris and his videographer Dave Sharp had estimated, that they thought there was about 30 shots fired. They said it was very close. The one thing that they thought was strange is that they felt like that the shots were in front of them, and then they heard some sounds behind them.
So for a little bit of context here, the shot you're looking at now, we are standing in the exact spot we were standing when the shots rang out. So we are half a block from that front line where you saw the protesters head-to-head with the police officers. We are in front of a vehicle right now where we ducked behind the engine block. And this was the area where we heard shots surrounding us, where I heard gunfire to my right and to my left. And I thought it was several shooters at the time. My colleague believes they were different weapons.
Do you believe that those shots were directed at police?
That I can't tell. That I would not know. I can just tell you that the shooter or shooters were moving, and they were moving fast, and they were shooting the entire time. I mean, it seemed like there was no end. It would be pop, 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 and a small breath, and then pop, 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 pop.
All right, Chris, thanks very much. We're going to go right back to Elliot Davis, who's in another part of the where the action is right now in West Florissant. He has some new information for us. Elliot, what can you tell us?
Yeah, Rafer, I talked to one of the St. Louis County police sergeants, and he confirms that someone was indeed shot. We don't know who that person is, but there is an ambulance down there at the scene right now tending to him. Now, he told me that the person is still alive. Again, the police sergeant said essentially that that person was shot, that the ambulance was called to the scene, and the ambulance is down there now. We don't know who that person is. We don't know if it was the shooter. We don't know if it was a bystander. We don't know any of that. But right now, we can confirm that at least one person has been shot, and ambulance is down there right now. But we are told that person is still alive. That's all we know new for now.
All right, thanks so much, Elliot. Let's head back out to Chris Hayes now. Chris, what's the mood there like now? How many protesters are still left?
Only about 20, but we just saw an encroachment of St. Louis County officers and making at least one arrest. They moved into the strip mall area where we believe that shooting broke out about 10 minutes ago. And now right in front of your screen, it looks like we have somebody being taken away after being arrested. And they're trying to disperse the crowd. One of the protesters appeared to creep up on that line of police police officers, and then the police officers pushed on through towards the Progressive Solo Insurance store, and that's when the arrest was made.
Chris, do we have any reason to believe that this was an officer-involved shooting at all?
I don't have that information at this time. I have been told
Chris,
by a source that somebody...
Chris, I want to
yes.
interrupt you. Chris, I want to interrupt you. We're seeing a victim being carried right now. Do you see that?
Yes.
Describe what you're seeing here.
We see that. That is what... So there is a woman who's being carried by, not by police officers, but by other demonstrators going towards police. And we see Captain Ron Johnson over there with the officers and a white shirt St. Louis County police officer. And then over in the strip mall, there's still some activity. We don't know how that woman was hurt, but it looks like they're trying to determine that at this time and make sure people are clear of weapons or just to make sure that things are safe at this time. Right now, we have about the same number of protesters we did. Well, no, I'd say about half what we did 20 minutes ago. It's thinned out, but we have more of the vocal protesters at this time, just kind of people wanting to make a point and still get in the face of officers.
What kind of things are they saying, Chris? What's the point that they want to make this evening?
You know, that is something that I'm not able to hear at this point because it is so loud and there is so much screaming. What I often see is someone with a scarf around their mouth and nose, and they will kind of jump up to the police line and point and yell as if they're being wronged, and then they'll back up and then do it over again.
Chris, obviously when you're out there, people talk, and it's certainly nothing's been confirmed about the shooter, but is there any talk about where the shots might have come from, or any idea based on what other people are saying out there in the street?
Yeah, so this area right now that you're looking at, this strip mall with the 911 hair salon, where you see a line of St. Louis County police officers slowly marching the demonstrators back. This is the section where we're told there was a break-in and officers were unable to respond. And this is the section where we're told that there was a shooting. And this is a parking lot away from where we were standing. And the action went from this strip mall to the Ferguson Market, which is in the direction we're walking right now. So that would explain why the shots appeared to be going by us.
All right, Chris, thank you. We have some new news just coming into the newsroom right now. This is from the St. Louis County Police Department. They're saying that there was an officer-involved shooting after officers came under heavy gunfire. We have some photos for you. These are two unmarked cars that police say took shots tonight.
And they said they will release more details as they become available, showing you some more pictures here of the unmarked cars that took some heavy gunfire, reports of about 30 shots. Just to give an overall recap of the evening, there was a small group of protesters out there, and at one point police appeared to outnumber them. There was looting, or as Chief Belmar called, robbing of two hair salons, Bowen's Beauty Salon and the 911 Beauty Supply. Police issued about 15 orders to disperse, and then objects were thrown at police, and then at about 11:15, gunshots were fired. Do we have that video?
While we're readying that video, we'll tell you that our reporters heard about 30. They estimated 30 gunshots that they heard. They say they were very near. It felt like that the gunshots were going right by them. So a scary situation. Here's the total that we have right now, at least what we know. Information is still coming in, but we do know that gunshots were fired. There was one gunshot victim. That victim was taken to the hospital via ambulance. The person was still alive. Police went with the ambulance to question that victim once he was taken care of at the hospital. There was one arrest made. We saw that arrest. Chris Hayes reported on that. We do not know the details of that arrest. We also saw a woman that needed a medical emergency. Apparently she had had a seizure on the scene this evening.